Everybody,
Good
Good
morning.
morning, Rob. Good morning, Rob.
Concentrating.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
good morning.
Morning, Rob.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Robert. Colleen, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, Adele.
Morning.
How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
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 Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Hey, Rob.
So, hope everybody's having a great day so far.
Little rainy.
You guys can hear me well, right?
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yeah, fine.
Hey, Rob. In my class yesterday, there was a couple of agents that asked me about this commission thing again. With the lawsuit and all. Buyer's agent to pay, well, how we're gonna pay buyer's agents. Maybe you can go over that if you have some time today. Is Debbie here? Debbie Gibbs?
Don't know.
Debbie said that she was in Orlando.
I'm here.
Hey, Deb.
Hi.
Yeah, she was in Orlando. You want to explain what you explained to me yesterday?
Well, with the lawsuit going on, NAR did lose, and Remax also is in it, and we've agreed to settle. There was a $1.875 billion settlement that was done. Florida Realtors is now being sued. 8 more spinoffs have come off on it, and it's becoming a bigger thing. And we do have listings out there now. The boards have changed. Most of the boards have changed, and ours is one of them that has changed to where you can put in a 0% commission to the buyer's agent. And that's leaving them in a quandary. When I went to the legal update, one of the biggest questions that's coming into the legal hotline is, do I have to show these properties that have 0% on them? And it is becoming a big deal. So before it is tremendously huge out of proportion, especially with us coming into our season, I think we should all get trained on it because it is becoming a big thing, and they don't have to pay a commission because they said, the antitrust, and then there's coercion, and sellers were paying more than they should, and they won. So we haven't won any cases yet. So
Yeah.
it is something that is out there. And I think the more that we get into the buyer brokerage agreement, the better off we are covered. So it is something that we do need to address and make sure that everybody does know. Because one of the things that they said when Joanna was talking, she's counsel for Florida Realtors, is she said, I hope I never hear an agent say, I don't know.
Okay, so I think there's an inherent amount of uncertainty when you go through a process like the court process. But I think as true leaders, what we need to do is provide clarity. And the duty is on me to provide clarity to all of you. And then you have a higher duty, which is to provide clarity to, if you're a leader in the company, your team members or your office. And as an agent and a fiduciary, you have to provide clarity to your clients. I'm glad to be part of an organization where we have a very, very strong leader, a visionary. And what Dave Liniger told us at the PBS Summit was, he made a business decision to settle, that his position remains that we've done nothing wrong. He said that, we have a fiduciary duty to serve our clients. The advent of buyer agency agreements makes a lot of sense because it better defines the relationship. And Deborah, if you've ever been on a grievance committee, right, and you have a commission, you have a procuring cause, what's one of the first things that they ask?
Who wrote the contract?
Okay, the second thing is, do you have a buyer's agency agreement, right?
Yes, that's becoming up right now. And I'm on professional standards and a mediator also. And we have a training class coming up on the 29th. And in our new training class, they are bringing that in.
And to be honest with you, Deborah, I'm going to take exception. Every time I've been to a procuring cause case, they know who wrote the contract. So that's not the first question. The first question is, did you have a buyer's agency agreement? Because it's usually the aggrieved party saying that I was entitled to it.
Right.
And the system asks, did you have a buyer's agency agreement? And then in my belief, if you don't have that buyer agency agreement, that's a
huge problem.
that's a huge hurdle to overcome, right?
Yes.
So
are you saying that we
Ron,
need one-
so Ron, bringing this circle back, you know, as crazy as this may be, this forces the issue to the front of our conversation. And all of us that are on this call here are now going to have the benefit of this knowledge. And we're going to be able to tell our clients that, you know, a system where our relationship is documented is beneficial. Okay. And if people are not putting commissions out, if that becomes more of a standard, okay, I think then we need to rely upon that agreement to define how we're compensated. Okay, and if there are, you know, one-offs, okay, there's going to be a learning curve. Okay, so if, you know, there's 4 properties being shown, we have a buyer's agency agreement saying that we're going to get paid 2.5%, and one doesn't pay a commission. That's a conversation that most of us should have with all of us should have with our clients, and most of us should say, hey, we're going to look for you to get paid because the seller isn't paying, or we're going to build the commission into the offer. Okay, that's where I see this process working towards. Okay, and you know, I don't like to speak ill about anything, but our industry, by and large, is filled with a majority of uncommitted people. But the good thing is the vast majority of the results are done by committed professionals. So if there's 1.4 million, 1.6 million licensed real estate professionals in the country, you know, probably 1.6 million of them are doing 85% of the business. And I want to focus on the 1.6 million of them, and those of you that are part of that group, giving you guidance so you better serve your customers. And if, you know, if you don't have a buyer's agency agreement and there's a 0% commission, you know, then we're forced to having a discussion. I don't think we should ever not show that property, because that's breaching your fiduciary duty, and you can't have a fiduciary duty only when it's convenient.
And they
So-
also
Anybody have any comments on that?
they also want us to talk to the sellers when we're taking a listing on how to pay each agent.
Hey, Rob, I have a question. Eric, I got a question.
Okay, sorry.
What?
Go ahead,
Okay,
Eric.
good. So what if the buyer says, I don't want to pay anything?
Or I thought your services were free.
Right.
Okay.
Do we still have to show them that listing we don't get paid on?
So you have 2 questions there. So what if a buyer says, I don't want to pay anything?
Right.
Then I would say, Eric, you know, I can totally appreciate that you don't want to pay anything. If we work together on this property, I'm going to put into the offer that the seller is going to pay my commission. That's like 80% or 90% of the other properties.
I didn't think we were allowed to do that. I didn't think we were allowed to do that either.
Miss Colleen and Deborah, I don't think that there's an issue with that, is there?
No,
I didn't think you could, I didn't think you could put in
actually-
a contract that
okay,
they'd have to pay.
actually, the Beaches MLS has added a new form that the seller fills out,
Right.
discussing the compensation. It shows that they acknowledge the fact that they don't have to pay, but they agree to pay.
Well, that's fine.
Well,
That's-
but Colleen, Eric was saying if there's somebody that said, if there's a client that Eric's working with, the client says, I don't want to pay any commission. There's 7 houses on the market. One of them's not paying a commission. Eric's question was, I believe, do we need to show that?
Okay,
Here's a case in point, guys.
Let-
Case in point. Let me just explain this real quick. There was a $10 million listing up in Pennock Point. It might have been $15 million listing. 0% to selling broker. Now, I didn't have a buyer for it, but I think if I sat down with a buyer and said, if I have to show you this property, you're gonna owe me 2.5%, they might have a hard time, but that's a lot of money. That's what, $500,000, $750,000.
Well, what I would suggest is like Colleen says, use that, the disclosure that says that,
Well, that's fine for the seller, but we're talking about for the buyer. And if,
yeah,
and
but I
if the
mean,
buyer says, I'm not gonna pay that,
put it in,
do we have
put
to
it in
show
your
it?
contract. Put it in your contract, it's legal.
Okay, so Eric, can I get practical with you here?
Sure.
So that, looking in the rearview mirror, maybe that would have sold easily, right? But let's just say looking into the next 24 months, they're probably going to need buyer's agents. And I would have a conversation with that listing agent and say, hey, if I bring you a buyer, could your client pay me something? And then if they don't, I still think we probably have to show it. And I think you probably want to have some sort of agreement in writing with your client. I'm going to lean on maybe Colleen to comment on that.
Yes, you definitely have to show it. It's a touchy situation because REC you can't not show a property because there's no compensation.
That's
They never
insane.
take into consideration our compensation.
So Eric, I think this isn't maybe.
Well, they want us to work for free.
So Eric, this might be an outlier that needs to get worked out through the system. And, I don't want to get negative over what an outlier might be, but there are ways that we could try to solve that. But the solution isn't as clear as with other questions that we had here. So
Real quick.
I do believe, okay, Eric, I do believe if you call the listing agent and say to them, look, I have a client, they're well qualified, blah, 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 blah. But I would like to know, can I get paid something on this? Could you go to your seller and ask them if they're willing to compensate me for bringing this buyer to them?
So Eric,
and you want it in writing, Eric.
One more question. Can we get permission from the buyer that if they're not being compensated by the seller, we don't have to show it to them?
I believe you could.
Okay.
Yes.
And
Yes, disclose
is
it.
it actually in writing where it says on this new rule that if there's no compensation, yes, we have to show? Like, I'm curious if it's been updated. Colleen, you say that we have to show it, but I'd be curious to see that actually in writing, that the board is actually telling us, yes, you have to show something. You don't get paid.
Colleen,
It's not the board.
hold on.
It's REC.
Right, but Colleen, can't you call the hotline and find that out for next week, right?
Absolutely.
And I believe I'm gonna bet $1 US that if the client says if there's no compensation, I give you permission not to show it. I don't want to see it. If that's written in writing, I can't imagine that the law is going to say that you have to show something if somebody doesn't want to. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't imagine it being that way, but I do want to get clarification on it. Judith, did you have a question?
I do.
Okay, and then we'll come back to you, Dan.
Rob, this is Karma Remax. I have experience before, which is the agent, she said an exclusive listing. And I have a buyer, and I called the listing agent. I said, listen, as Colleen, she said, I have a buyer, he's very well qualified. Please ask the seller at this time if he actually like to actually pay Remax the commission. And you know what? Because the listing without other agents showing, the seller discover that he doesn't have too many showing. So after that, they change their mind because they find out there is not too many activity for showing. So I think it is, I agree with Colleen or Rob that call the listing agent, and you will be surprised that is they will agree, and I agree with her that they have to send it to you by email.
So Karma, I wanted to summarize what you said. So economic forces are the great equalizer, and for sellers, there's no free lunch. So
Yes.
we have two other hands, and then I have to get moving on. This is a great discussion. We had Judith, and then you, Dan, next. Okay, go ahead, Judith. You're on
Okay,
mute.
so
You're
I'm
on
sorry.
mute, Judith. Hold on, Judith, you're on mute.
Oh, good morning, guys. How are you? Sorry to so anyway, about 16 years ago when I got licensed, I think I was explaining this to you, Rob. I was a victim as a buyer, and before I closed on that house, I got my New York State license. And when I did, I sat with my broker and I said, "What about the buyer? Why is the buyer not protected?" And she was like, "Oh my God, music to my ears." Hence, fast forward, MLS in New York always had a buyer agency contractual agreement. So I learned that agreement back in the day. When I learned that agreement back in the day, what I did was as soon as I met a buyer immediately, I would have my 6 or 7 MLS sheets and I would show the buyer, here we're getting paid, here I'm not getting paid. If you look at the cuts here, I'm not getting paid. So, Mr. Buyer, this will not harm you. I will show you the property. By law, we have to show the property. Secondly, I'd make that call. This is years ago before this became an issue. I'd call the listing agent. If I couldn't get anywhere with that, my buyer contractual agreement always had a 2%. New York's different. We always had crazy commissions, low commissions, and it was survival of the fittest. So in order for me to get my 2%, even 2% in New York, guys, I used to have my contractual agreement. I would put it into the sale price of the contract. Buyer was aware of it, agent was aware of it, seller was aware of it. And I always got paid a proper amount of money.
Yeah,
So
that's what I would do is where in the back of the contract where it says the names of the realtors, we always put our compensation in there. So we're working with a buyer and MLS says 2.5%, we put 2.5%. So if it says 0, I would probably still put 2.5%. Colleen, is that legal? You're saying it was, right?
it is if everyone is aware. Everyone has to agree.
And sign
So the seller has to, everybody, the
Right.
buyer, it has to be disclosed. So this is I'm glad this is kind of happening because it's just the way of the world. And I would recommend to anybody go get an ABR, go get your certifications because it's gonna matter.
Well, Judith,
Have a great day.
Hey, Judith, thank you. And it was very interesting. Judith's story is that she basically got into the business because she was victimized by the profession and the unprofessionalism that she experienced. Dan, I'm going to go to you, and then I see Audrey had a question. Then we have to get moving on. Dan.
A comment and a question. So I can't see how the majority of sellers are not going to offer a compensation commission based on how this has worked out over the past 100+ years. Number two, what if the buyer includes the commission in the offer, the seller accepts minus the commission, and the buyer insists on buying that property? Are we out of luck in terms of our income?
It depends. If you have a buyer's agency agreement, no. Then it reverts back to the buyer. So Dan, some of this stuff is going to play out over time. You look confused.
No, I just.
So in the perfect case, Dan, what you're going to do is you're going to have a conversation with your buyers and say, look, some sellers pay commission, some sellers don't pay commission. Presumptively, the sellers that aren't paying commission are pricing the home more competitively because they're not paying a commission. If we decide that we're a good fit to work together and there's a seller that refuses to pay a commission, I just want to get your permission that within our relationship that you will be the one paying me. Sounds very reasonable, right? And to be honest, if somebody says, I want you to work for free, I would walk away. And to Eric Pruitt's point, you know, if a listing agent comes to Eric and says, Eric, I don't know, Eric, are you still able to chat? I know you're on mute. But if a seller comes to you, Dan, and says, look, I want you to list my house, I only want to pay you $500 because I'm not required by law to do it. You know, you're going to say thank you, but no thank you, right? And it could be a $10 million deal. You're still going to walk away from it. And the same would hold true for a buyer. If they're not willing to have a clear contractual relationship, we need to be able to say, you know, that's what the beauty of this whole controversy is it's forcing us to put things in writing and identify, you know, who's going to do what before we spend a lot of time. Okay. I hope that helps. And I think the unfortunate thing might be just for some of the people who are first-time buyers, the seller refuses to pay, and then they, you know, financially don't have the cash to do it. Those might be the ultimate victims in this scenario here if the regulators and the industry doesn't find a way to incorporate, you know, the closing that into the closing costs and the financing. Okay. I think Audrey had a question. I see there might be a couple of questions in the chat. My chat is reading weird. Robert, can you read the chat from Audrey? I'm so sorry.
I was told that I cannot have my buyer pay my commission when doing a for sale by owner. I'm confused.
If you're showing a for sale by owner, you absolutely can have the buyer pay. It just needs to be done in writing in advance.
Rob,
Yes.
I actually had that deal closed already, but the buyer had contacted me because he was getting the opportunity to purchase a house that he lived in. And I had everything written up that the buyer was paying the commission. He was happy with doing it. But at the end, I was told I couldn't do that. And they had to, we had to do everything over so that the commission would come from the seller side. So I'm confused listening to all of this because I've
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt. I need to add something because Ron had asked if it was legal to put it in the contract about your commission. It isn't. We are not a party to the contract. The contract is between the buyer and the seller. So it is not legal, Ron, to put in there that this is what your commission will be.
We came
in Florida.
But hold on, but Colleen, I'm gonna take this one step further. Maybe we can refine the responses here. But a buyer can put in there that the seller is going to pay my transfer tax, right? That's a part of the terms, correct? Colleen?
Yes.
Okay.
A buyer can put it. Go ahead.
Right. A buyer can put in there that the seller is going to pay, you know, 10,000 towards my closing costs, right?
Yes.
So a buyer can put in there that the seller is going to pay my commission.
Yes, but Ron was saying where it says under the signatures that he will be paid, you know, such and such commission. Yeah, it could be structured differently.
Right. So, but this all goes back to if you have a buyer's agency agreement, it gives you more leverage because then the buyer owes you that commission and you're asking the seller to pay that on your behalf instead of paying it as their contractual obligation. I got to wrap this up so that we can get moving on, but this is a great conversation and
I will prepare some things for our next Friday meeting, and also I don't know if Chrissy's on the call, but Chrissy is extremely knowledgeable. She had sent me the new addendum for the sellers, so we'll be able to go over that next week, and also I'll speak to Freck and get additional information.
Colleen, please use Deborah. Please use Deborah because she's on the committee, so she would be the best point of reference, and she's going to start our classes. So right. Deborah is your person.
So I have a couple of bold predictions. Number one is I just don't think that this carnage of litigation is going to continue. There's going to be some either legislation or some judiciary ruling that's going to give us clarity in the near future. Okay, when I say near future, it might be 2 to 2.5 years that we're going to be operating in this uncertainty, this cone of uncertainty. And ultimately, what we do serves a tremendous public good. And I think the housing industry is somewhere along the lines of 15% of the entire economy. So we basically can't be shut down. I mean, the industry can't be closed for business. All right. So those are a couple of predictions that I have. And then my observation is that, you know, bringing this to the conversation, Inman in New York has record attendance. I think it has 60 or 70% more than it had last year. Deborah, did the Orlando Realtor event have more attendance this year than typically?
We had a tremendous attendance in it. The advocacy meeting and then the legal update. They used the bigger room. Every seat was filled and there was literally standing room only.
So everybody who's committed on this call, I predict we and our clients are going to be beneficiaries of the clarity and making this front and center in the point of conversation, because I think buyer agency agreements are a good thing. I think that we've gotten, as an industry, we've given that control over to the buyers, like they're, you know, going shopping at the mall, go to this store, that store, instead of picking a professional that's going to, you know, help them with one of the most important decisions that they're going to make. So we're going to move on. Renee, I apologize. I wanted to ask you a favor and give us a quick update on what's going on in our financing side of the world so that we can hopefully do some more business. So Renee,
No worries.
Cornerstone first.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Wow, that's a lot of information we just heard. Gotta love this business though. There's always something going on. And in mortgages, as always, there's always a lot of volatility over here as well. The bond market has been a roller coaster again this week. You know, we had Yellen talk and about spending money was a good thing. And I don't know, I think the bond market will determine that. We had PCE numbers come out. The economy is starting to look normal, but we all know housing is not looking normal. I don't think there's anything normal about 2 years of compounded 18% inflation. So, and interest rates are still way above the rate of inflation. So what do we do? Right now in this market, like other markets we've been in, it's all about product. So how do I help you sell more houses? And the way to do that in this particular market is to know and have value with product. And I see this on a regular basis. So many clients come across my desk that have spoken to agents, and their agents have a pre-approval letter from someone else, and they're told they can't qualify and they really want to go to a certain price range, but they were told they can only qualify for X. And it's mainly because excuse me, the lender they're working with or the agent they're working with is not educated on the, I'm going to call them non-QM, that's the technical word, but these are the products that we're seeing a lot of today. And in the past 30 to 60 days, I've seen more non-QM product come across my desk. And what that is these are loan products that are out of the box. The terms, DSCR, bank statement program, ITIN, foreign national, P&L. If I had to take a guess right now, and I'd love to ask all of you, how many people on this call know that they can get a borrower into a house without tax returns, with showing just a profit and loss statement, which anybody can type up? How many people here actually know you can do that?
Didn't know that.
Yes.
Know that, right? How many people knew that the knowing?
What would the rate be?
The rates are actually pretty good. They're in the sevens. I just had a client. I'm going to give you a quick little story and then I'm going to let you go because I know Rob's got a lot. I had a client reach out to me yesterday or earlier this week and say to me, we're trying to buy a house for 2.6 million. They were putting $1 million down, 900,000 down. Nobody could get them a mortgage. They're self-employed. Their tax returns show they gross about 5-6 million a year and they write everything off. They have $900,000 to put down. No one could get them a mortgage. I took their bank statements from their business, showed the last 24 months, their deposits they made. Not only did I get them a mortgage, I got it done in 3 days, and I gave them a rate of 7 7/8 with like 2,100 in points. Then I called this listing agent who I happen to know, told her these people were qualified, and they got accepted. They're into contract and they're going to close the end of March now. These people had gone to 7 different mortgage lenders. And the realtor was giving up on them. So that's just a little example of some of the stuff we do. ITIN. I know we have a big Latino community within RE/MAX, and I'm excited to have you all meet Fabricio next week, our new Latino loan officer. But right now he's writing loans, no social security number, no citizenship, ITIN number, 20% down with the P&L
So
getting approved.
So team, it's basically, you know, aligning yourself not with people who just you know, quote rates and deliver good service, but it's aligning with partners that help us do more business. Because I think Renee understands, like, you know, there's a lot of competitors that, you know, are competitive price wise and they deliver good service, but they don't help you grow your business. And a real partner is somebody that, you know, helps you grow your business with you. And that's why, you know, I'm honored to have our affiliates on. And, you know, if you have a chance, reach out, say hi, hopefully give them an opportunity to show you how they can help make you look good.
Thank you. And one of the things we're going to be doing going forward is each month, for those of you that work with my team, we're going to be offering lunch and learns, and we'll have these on specific product. If you want us to do them via Zoom, for those of you that aren't in New Jersey or are maybe don't come into the office and don't want to come to a lunch and learn, we can do them via Zoom as well. Just reach out to your manager and let them know, and they can reach to me and we can set them up, because knowledge is power. And the more you know about a product and the more you know about ways to get their price ranges up and down payment assistance and all the things we have, the more houses you'll sell for sure.
So Renee, thank you. And thank you to your team. I see your team is present and on video and ready to help us. So thank you, Cornerstone First Team. And I see some of the Motto team here for our Florida group. Thank you for being, you know, good partners and helping us make our job just a little bit easier. So it's interesting how, like, a lot of the things that we talk about are going to tie into my topic for this week. And I'm going to just start by sharing my screen to get it going. And this week's topic is how to bring your best self to your day. Just kind of a little bit of a corny topic, but, you know, if I got the best version of you working every day, you would enjoy your job more, you'd be more effective, you'd be able to serve more, you'd make more money, it would be more abundant for your families. So simply, how do we get the best you to show up every day? I'm sure we're going to have a lot of discussions about this. I'm going to start with a little bit of a mind dump. And my mind dump is, let's look at our objectives for this first quarter. Okay. Number one, collaboration and sharing, and R&D. And R&D is not research and development, but who knows what the R&D I'm talking about is? Come on, somebody knows. It's rip off and duplicate. And it's doing that with permission. Okay, and that's what happens in the sharing environment. Number 2 is atomic habits, okay, which is small changes to transform habits. And it's supposed to be improve 1% daily. If you were to improve 1% daily over a year, it would be astronomical. Okay. And then the second thing that I want to be, in your mindset is focus on repeatable systems. Okay, focus on repeatable systems, because that makes, the second quarter a little bit easier than the first quarter, because we've implemented systems as well as created good habits. Okay. And these are my personal beliefs on where a lot of us have room for improving. Video, there's been, countless examples through our very talented tribe here of people using video and generating more business, serving their clients better. For those of you who weren't on probably now about a month or so ago, the Morris agent team had shared with us a tactic that they used. And the tactic came from them masterminding as a team on how do we get our offers accepted. And they created a whole list of beliefs and things that they could implement. And I don't know if anyone from the team is here wants to share a few, but I know one of them was including a video with the offer, knowing that the listing agent will most likely forward that video to the homeowner. And that basically gives you an opportunity to talk to the seller directly, okay? Because the agent's just forwarding. It's very rare that they would take that email with the offer, download the contract, create another email and forward it to the seller. So when they just forward your video, you're basically talking to the seller. Anyone from the Glenn Baker team want to share some of those ideas that you talked about?
I'm not sure what the question was, Rob. I get the I know what we do. You're asking, what do we say?
Well, no, you talked about, and it wasn't you, it was your team, which is what was even more amazing when I came up to your meeting. But they were saying, we've done things like offered to pay the transfer tax and some other things that, to me seem to be monetary, but those little changes seem to have a big impact on your contract acceptance rate, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I know we shared the list of those with everyone as well. But yeah, that it's looking different. Everyone says the same thing in all their offers, and once you have a little bit of a difference, then it starts to pique their interest.
And to the extent the smart or the more successful people in the business look at what everybody else is doing and pretty much do the opposite.
Yes.
Okay, because if you're doing what everybody else is doing, you're probably damned to mediocrity. Okay. But Glenn had actually, and it wasn't even about, it had nothing to do with that topic, but Glenn shared that idea, and to me that was just amazing. You're basically, so many agents, especially us old timers, Glenn, you probably don't know this, but years ago, agents used to go to the seller's home with the listing agent and present the offer directly. Are there any agents on the call that used to do that?
Oh, yeah.
Me and Ron.
That was the best time ever.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We drive back and forth between houses until midnight, getting it done.
Yeah, and that's the best way to do it. I mean,
all right. So who just said you drove back and forth to midnight? Who was that?
That's me, Chrissy.
Chrissy. So Chrissy, did you not have an advantage when you got to present it in person?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we may still have that right. Your video may be a right.
So Chrissy, this little tip basically gives you the ability to, with technology, get into their living room and present that offer, by video, and It's consistent with the efficiency measures that we're looking for, but it also gives that personal touch. So thank you, Mr. Glenn Baker. And for those of you who maybe this is one of your first times on the mastermind, or maybe you're even a guest, I'm looking on this roster of people we have. You know, we have at least 3 of our top 5 agents or team leaders on the call, over $1 million in commission, and they're here contributing, and I hope they're even gaining some knowledge and information, but it's amazing.
Yeah, and Rob, if I can give just 2 little quick tips on that you brought to mind. I had a call with my agents and someone said, well, I've done everything I could on the offer. And I said, did you send a video? And they said, no. And I said, then you can't say you've done everything you could to do the best for your client. And I think that has to be kind of a mindset. If you think that you've written a great offer, you may have wrote it on paper, but you didn't relay it. And you probably didn't do your best for the client if you didn't do a video along with it. And we kind of implanted that mindset, and now offers don't go without videos on our team. And then just my second comment was, with being creative, sometimes we get so trapped in our heads. And an example being, we write into many of our offers that the sellers can leave everything except for hazardous materials. And everyone goes, my God, why would you do that? But I take it like this. Do I want to bid up 10 grand or bring in a clean out company for 2 and win the house that they want and love? And it's just a matter of how you push the numbers around and how you make the offer attractive. But those types of things work. But when you tell yourself they won't work, you're never going to win.
Well, and you know, Glenn is you know, the leader of the Morris agent team, a Diamond Club producer, and he's sharing his tips with you. So, you know, Glenn, thank you as always. Eric, you know, all the great talent that shares here. It's not unappreciated.
One thing I would like to add, Rob, if I may. In 2021, I have an investor. He bought from me 10 townhouses and condo, and we got every single offer accepted because he offered to the seller he will get a clear certificate of occupancy and cost $50, $100, and or maybe changing the smoke detectors, but it did actually relieve the seller from only if there is no past permit, but for just the smoke certificate or
cosmetic items, things of that nature. Yep.
Yeah, so he did pay for that. We get actually clear CO for each one of them. In the meantime, none of the offer would not accepted. Every single offer has been accepted because I don't know, because of that and some other issue also. But this is one the homeowner felt like it a lot.
So Karma, thank you for sharing that, because that brings to mind a conversation that I have if I ever go out with you on a listing opportunity. Almost every time I am participating in it, these words come out of my mouth at some point. Hey, Karma, you know, if you could put these in order of priority so I can better serve you and help you make the right decisions. Is it most important for you to sell your house in the for the highest possible price, shortest period of time, or have the least amount of stress? If you put those in order of priority from top priority, middle to lowest priority, I can help you structure a better plan to sell your house. Right? Now you just flip that and you put that onto the seller, because maybe price, and Glenn, you did the same thing. Maybe price isn't as important, but maybe convenience and not having the stress of, you know, having to meet with a township official or having the stress of cleaning out the house is more important than the monetary squeezing the last ounce of cash out of the transaction. So I just learned that parallel here just today because of the two of you. So thank you both.
You're welcome.
So, and when I repeat these things, it's not because I'm going senile, even though I may be, but I want this to become second nature. So, you know, keep collaborating and sharing your ideas. Whatever you share comes back in return in multiples. Atomic Habits means 2025 is going to be a lot better than 2024, regardless of the market, because we've personally made small changes and we've developed repeatable systems. Okay. for many of us, that's adding staffing and team members. But for some of us, it might just be having habits and just getting more organized and systemized. Another tremendous opportunity is sitting in our database, or what should be part of our database, right? And our database should consist of our sphere of influence, our clients who previously did transactions with us, and our future clients who many of us call leads. Okay, those are the three pillars of our database that I think we should be focusing on. And I was watching a podcast, or listening to a podcast, and I think the gentleman was 1,000 Watts was the name of the podcast. And the whole episode, and this is going back many years ago, was about, just calling a lead is just it's a mental trap, right? Because a lead is not a lead. A lead is a person. If you inquire about a home through a squeeze page or a portal, or you get something that comes your way, it's not a lead, it's a person. And when we call it a lead, it has a different mental connotation than it does if it's a future client, right? If you think of leads as future clients, instead of calling them leads, it will change the way that you behave. Okay. So if we were to, spend some time when we talk about systems, cleaning up our database, because really the only asset we have in this business is our database, right? And our database gives us referrals. Our database can be nurtured. Our database can have the participants of our database give us referrals. It can be repeat business from themselves. And it can even, more importantly, be business that they didn't even know could be business. So our database is basically, if you think about in the real estate business, the database is your asset. And would you neglect your biggest asset? And I think if you think that way, you're gonna make some time, you're gonna make some deliberate effort to clean up that database and come up with systems on how to better communicate and to pull data and pull business out of that very valuable database. Next things that I believe that we all need to get out of our comfort zone and do more is video. Video is very scalable. Video is very relatable. Video is very repeatable. Okay. Video creates or enhances relationships, because then people who don't like you when they see your video, they won't like you in person. They don't like you on video. They're never going to work with you anyway. So the video has flown its mission and it's done its job. Artificial intelligence. Using AI, and maybe initially it might be a little bit overwhelming, but I think with the collaboration and sharing that we have as a group, it's just amazing what we can accomplish. I think everybody here would like to have more listings. And for us old timers in the business, there's a saying. And does anybody know what that saying is in the business? Calling on all.
Your list will last. If you don't, you won't.
Yeah, you list to last. Okay. And a lot of agents enjoy the emotion of working with a buyer, because, to be honest with you, there might be more joy in helping somebody buy a house than there is maybe in having them sell a house, right? The emotion of, oh, this is our dream house. You drove me around to 13 houses. We spent 3 months, and Ron Piccolo, thank you so much. But how scalable is that, Ron? You're on mute. Ron, you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, it's not very scalable. I mean, you want to make sure that you're the leader. That's why you want to become a listing agent.
Right. And selling houses, when you've sold somebody, working with a buyer, when you've sold somebody's house and they need to move, there's a little bit more motivation, perhaps you get to know them better and they're not going to take as long to take action. And then if you're, like Ron, you can design a life where you've produced offspring to sell houses. But that needs some advanced planning. But if not, you can talk to Ron about building a team or any of our leaders. And that's a benefit for, the people that you're mentoring. And it also gives you some scalability. I've had some conversations over the past month as the new year turns about reinvesting in farming, geographic farming, mailing. Okay. Not very sexy or exciting, but you do know where your audience is, right? If you want to sell houses in Pompano Beach in a particular community, you don't need to worry about where they are online, right? You just shoot them a piece of mail, you knock on their door, and there's your audience. Right, Ron?
Absolutely, yes.
Where the buyers are coming from, they might be coming from Ottawa, they might be coming from Cincinnati, they might be coming from Cranford, New Jersey. We don't know, but we do know where the sellers are. It makes our job a hell of a lot easier. Okay, so if we could make a deliberate effort to focus on sellers and play the long game, one of the biggest mistakes, and I would say, I'm gonna go out there, Ron, and say probably 70% of mailings that agents do, or probably 80, it's probably the 80-20 rule. 80% of mailings that agents do, they don't send them out long enough for them to have an impact.
That's what I try to teach my agents. I say you just can't mail once or twice in a neighborhood and expect to get listings. I mean, to get lucky, but I mean, it takes sometimes 6 months to a year.
Right, but you have to have that conviction, right? And if you do the homework, you understand what the available market is, right? The TAM.
Uh-huh.
And then you factor in your CAC, cost to acquire a client.
Yep.
Then you can do the math backwards. And you want to hear some good news in this market, Ron? I'll give you some great news.
Great news.
Everybody wants great news. So in every case where I met with agents, or mostly these were team leaders, and we expanded their farm mailing, and they've had experience with different farms, the cost to acquire a client, or even the cost to acquire a closing, was probably in the 15 to 20% range. Okay. If you were to get a referral from Zillow for a listing, or from a listing portal, Ron, what do you think they're going to charge you?
Well, from Zillow, you pay a fee to get a zip code. So I don't know. I guess it would be.
So there are services that send out. Would it shock you if I told you that most of the high quality listing referrals that are going out in the industry are between 40 and 42.5%? Would that shock you, Ron?
Yeah, that would shock me.
Well, that's where they are. And you're going to be going all over the place with people that don't know you to get those referrals. And many of them will give it to two people so that you're even competing. But if you do a farm and your cost to acquire a closing is 15% or 20%, that's just amazing. I mean, we have an agent that shared her complete business plan with us on our first inaugural peer-to-peer. And again, you could ask your manager or whoever you want. You can even text me. I'll send you the link to it. And she shared with us that she spends about $50,000 to $60,000 a year on mailing, and her worst year from her farms was $250,000 of commission, and her average was closer to $350,000, with her best topping $400,000 with a $50,000 to $60,000 investment.
Nice.
All financial advisors, I dare you to try to beat that return. And the certainty that exists there, if there are homes selling, she's going to have that market share in her farm area. So the geographic farm is not dead. It's a long game. And, those of us that are spending time here are in here because we're in the long game. Let me just see my,
Mailing to a farm area is probably your best bet of getting leads, but you still have to follow up with a phone call. So whenever we do a mailing in our farm area, we usually start calling in that farm area within about a week or two after the mailing. Just again to reiterate, who we are. A lot of people say, yeah, we just got your buyer last week. And when we're ready, we'll let you know. Or we got a cousin just looking to buy or sell. It is so important to really formulate a good farm area. And I tell my agents the same thing, over and over again.
Rob, I think there's a huge opportunity to do this now with farming. I think as the commission plans are kind of in limbo, I think as a listing agent, like you said before, you always want to do things what other people are not doing. And as the agents kind of shrink a little bit, I think the NAR announced a few weeks ago that there was a reduction in membership from last year. You're going to start seeing that changing. So I think farming and and having a plan for the next 12 months in whatever area is a good thing.
so this new voice, Andrew Velez, came to us from another local legacy Remax, and I'm proud to have you on our team. Your insight is appreciated, and I look forward to seeing you thrive with us here, Mr. Andrew Velez, from our Parkland office. So we have the Geo Farm. And then if you got a list to last, you need to have a plan and a strategy for open houses. And, I'm going to take this off here and say, I want to look in your eyes. So many people are like, open houses don't sell the house, right? Who's there saying that, right? Open houses don't sell the house. I mean, I know you all know that. It's what's it, like 1 or 2%?
The percentages are low.
Right.
It's mostly leads.
But the sellers, despite the fact that you can, jump up and down and give them all the data, do they want to, in many cases, see you do an open house? I think many sellers want to see that you're working and doing that open house, and that open house gives you credibility for doing business in that area and gives you the best leads that you could ever generate. And, if you have an open house and there's 12 people coming in, who does a lot of open houses? Who loves to do open houses?
I do.
I just raised my hand. I'm a firm believer in open houses. I sold my 16th open house, and I'm having a sweet 16 party for it. So when I do all my calls around, it gives me another way to invite people in, because I did sell my 16th open house myself. I did sell another one, but it didn't close.
So Deborah, how many people are you seeing at open houses in the last month?
I haven't done them in the last month. The last one I sold was in September. But when I do my open house, I do them differently. I put in 8 to 10 hours ahead of time, so I make sure I have a really good showing.
And how many people show up?
You'll get anywhere from 4 to 20.
And out of that 4 to 20, how many of them have committed to working with somebody else?
3/4 of them, actually.
And how many of the last quarter of them probably aren't real buyers? They're just Sunday shoppers.
Even the ones with an agent are Sunday shoppers, I'm finding.
Right, but so if you have 20 and you have 6 that don't have an agent, would you say maybe 2 or 3 of those aren't even going to be buying, right?
Correct.
So most agents focus on this. Deborah, that's great. But you know what? I had 20 people there, and 14 of them had an agent, and then 2 of them, they're not really even serious about buying. So it's really not worth it. And I'm like, what?
Exactly.
What?
Rob,
Let me just fall off my chair. And this is like when I first started out in the business, I had an agent come and say, I'm going to start doing mailings, and they sent out 2,000 pieces, and they're like, I only got 1 listing. I don't think I want to keep this. Now, this was 30 years ago, so the effectiveness of mailing, I think, was a little bit higher on that, just a random mailing. But I'm like, what the heck is wrong with you? You know, at the time, you got a $300,000 listing, you know, which was like a $1 million listing today, and you spent $400, and you're like, this isn't worth it. I sent out 2,000 pieces. I only got 4 phone calls and 1 listing. I'm like, you know, you have to look at what you're focusing on, right? So anyway, I just want to think differently, okay? And Deborah, thank you so much for sharing. And I'm just going to say you know, most agents focus on the 14 that are there with an agent, or the 2 or 3 that aren't serious buyers, but they don't realize that there's 2 to 4 quality buyers there. And if you have 2 to 4 buyers there, Deborah, I just want to take this a little bit deeper, right? In your market, if there were 4 buyers that came in the door that were qualified and going to buy in the next 6 months, how many of them are going to have a house to sell?
Yeah, some of them do have a house for sale. And one thing that I did find was there were a few of them who were doing their pre-looking. And so open houses were safe. So I do have a few buyers that I will be working with in the next few months, because I did that open house. I did show myself as a professional. So they are going to come back to me. And I did have another one with an agent who wanted to work with me, but I very carefully stepped out of that.
So Deborah, I just realized we're at 10:31, but I want to ask you, out of 4 of them, how many, if there are 4 buyers at your open house, how many of them have a place to sell? Just gut.
At least 2 of them.
So you got 2 extra listings. So there's a listing strategy from Open Houses team that you want to rip off and duplicate. And just for the record, this wasn't pre-planned. This is all genuine, you know, authentic conversations. So, you know, having a geo farm, and then having a pre-open house, an open house, and a post-open house. And I'm even going to put on there client events. And here's the existing home sales team. You know, we peaked at like 6.12 in 2021. Still less than it was in 2005 and 06. They were projecting 4.3, but I think the real numbers were for 2023 were probably right around 3.9 million. This is from my coach Wayne. He is a data nerd, and here's the predictions of where we see the market going next year. The National Association of Realtors and the MLS are predicting about a 14% increase in business. Goldman Sachs and Zillow are predicting a 9% decrease. Maybe the realtors have wishful thinking, and you know, maybe Zillow is a little bit negative, but you know, I don't think anybody's gonna expect the market to save us. And I don't think the market's going to, you know, devastate us, but don't sit there and wish and hope the market's going to come back and save us. Okay. You know, for our team leaders, and this might even, not might, this is relevant to the extent that we can get more in-person and virtual with our tribe, whether we're a team, it's our team members. If we're looking at our audience, our database, you know, video, in person, recorded, social media, you know, if we can communicate the challenges to overcome, it's an interesting conversation. Not just communicate the challenges, communicate how we're going to prevail, and commit ourselves to, you know, 2024 and beyond. You know, that's how we bring a better you to the day. And you know, I'm just every week I'm amazed at the talent and the sharing that goes on here. So have an awesome, productive weekend. Thank you for coming on, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Thank you,
Have
Rob.
a good day. Have a good